Well, his resume, I mean, needs no introduction at all to Warriors fans. Brent Tate, who played for the Broncos, Warriors and Cowboys, 229 representative games in the NRL, played 23 Origin for Queensland, 26 Tests for Australia, won a grand final in '06. One hell of a career. Brent, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you for having me, Martin.
Let's talk about the Warriors, that game on the weekend to start with at Suncorp. What an atmosphere, what a game.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Look, obviously really disappointing as a Warriors fan, and but can be certainly really proud of their team and where they've come from. And I think there's plenty of green shoots ahead for the club. And as a Warriors fan and a former player, mate, I'm really looking forward to next year and seeing what they can produce. So it'll. Exciting times for the Warriors.
That's what we're all hoping, Brent, that it unlocks the potential of this club. You spent some years here. We loved you when you were here, and we just never kind of just got to where we're at the moment. But I suppose the key thing from here is not just having a one-season wonder, but moving on and building upon that.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing now, is having some consistency and being a club that's at the top year in and year out, in that top 8, making finals every year. I think that's the mark of where you want to get to as a club. And the Warriors have taken a giant step forward. It's funny, I heard Andrew Johns on the Footy Show the other day talk about the Warriors and where they can get to next, and how they're going to do that. And it is, his answer was pretty simple. It's going to be up to the playing group and how hard they want to work. And if they come back next year in the pre-season, knuckle down. They've certainly got all the talent in the world, and if they work hard and continue to have a similar attitude to what they had this year, well, they can be anything, especially with some of the key guys they've got coming to the club next year.
Is that the observation that you make as well, looking outside in, thinking that what can you see an improved attitude? Obviously, the fitness is clearly gone up. The willingness to defend, and especially the play in the last 20 minutes. All of these things are so encouraging, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They really are. And as I said, I think there's a lot of green shoots there, and they've taken a huge step forward this year. Every year you turn up, you've got to train hard. You've got to have an attitude and the will to want to get the job done and the will to win. And I think next year they're going to be a lot stronger than what they are this year with the guys that they've brought. They're going to have a lot more depth in the halves. Obviously, Tuivasa-Sheck coming back to the club is a huge bonus. And a lot of those guys that are there this year, the younger guys are 12 months on again, played a few games now, so they understand what it takes to prepare and win each week. And I'm really excited about what they can do next year. And there has been a huge improvement in their willingness to just hang in games. Play tough and understand they've got enough talent to score points, and that's what it's about. You got to defence wins games, and if the Warriors can get that part of their game right, they've got enough attacking options to outscore any team. So, big off-season for them coming up next year.
Brent Tate is with us on the platform. We're talking about the Premiership Grand Final, Penrith versus Brisbane, in just a second. You've gone through, outside of the injuries as well, but the highs and lows. You've been in teams that have been very successful. As I said, you won a premiership with the Broncos. Then you're with the Warriors, and it's not so successful. How much difference does it make, Brent, when you're winning every week? And the Warriors won 16 games this year as opposed to 6 last year. What does that do to you? Does it make you want to run into work, train harder? Just talk us through that.
Yeah, well, I think it's like anything. You just enjoy your workplace more. It's a lot more enjoyable place to be when you're winning each week. There's not that constant pressure and expectation. You don't feel the weight of that as much. So I think, when you're winning, mate, it can snowball. And, I think one of the things Andrew Webster's also done this year for that club and the players is he's given them a belief in themselves. There's always been the talent at the Warriors, and the juniors and that coming through have always got a great production line. But I guess it's just them believing it in themselves now that they can actually compete at that level week in and week out. And I think at the end of the day, that's been the big difference. Is this year they look like a team that believed in each other. So, mate, winning. There's no better feeling when being in a footy club and you're winning games. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to be a part of, and you bounce into work and you're happy to get to training and work hard, and it's a great place to be when you turn up on the weekend and you just know you're going to get the job done. That's when you know your club's humming. So there were certainly times throughout the year the Warriors looked like that. And that belief that they've got now, if they come back and knuckle down next year, there's no reason why they can't be a really successful club.
At the same time, the very realism attached to it is that Penrith and Brisbane are head and shoulders above everyone else this year in the comp. They're 1 and 2 for a reason. They both did exactly the same thing in their playoffs, smacked Melbourne and then had a great win over the Warriors as well. So there is a real gap between these two. That's why they're in the grand final, right?
Yeah, there is. I've felt all along, especially the last few weeks of the season, that there was two comps. It was Broncos and Penrith, and it was a rest. And I think the grand final is a reflection of that. I think Brisbane are the only team that have the strike power and playing the way they are to beat Penrith. It's going to take a mammoth job because they're a great club, Penrith, and they've been there plenty of times before. And experience going into a grand final, counts for everything. So, Broncos have got the talent, they've got the strike power and the firepower to beat them. But it's for me, it's just going to be how those guys that have never played in a grand final handle the occasion and what they bring on the day.
Yeah, of course. I want to ask you how to break that Penrith side down. But before we do that, this is a Brisbane side that last year had it in the palm of their hands, and then it all fell away terribly at the end of the year. So first and foremost, those guys had to live with that, had to accept that, had to come back and beat that. And that's what they've done this year. So the next step, obviously, is to raise that again and actually win the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think, mate, good teams, Martin, learn from their mistakes and they correct them. And really, the Broncos have done that this year. We know they fell away last year, but this year they obviously learned from that. They made some adjustments to the way they prepared and the way Kevy's coached them, and they've certainly got the fruits of that labour now. But they lose Flegler and Herbie Farnworth next year, who are two really, really good players. So when you get to a grand final, mate, it is so hard to reach. You want to win them when you get to it. So. For them to raise the bar, I think they're going to have to be at their absolute best. But that's certainly the next step for this Broncos team.
Brent Tate with us. Brent, can they play the same way that they did against the Warriors? There were two things I wrote down and I wanted to ask you about. One of them was obviously the offloads, which just, killed the Warriors. But it was the way that the offloads in the tackle, the players were turning straight away, putting their back to the opposition, getting that free arm going. So that's obviously a tactic. That's one of them. Plus also players in motion. I mean, one of the things I was watching was that every time that the attack was coming, it wasn't just Reece Walsh. There were 3 or 4 runners in motion all the time. Is that the key to beating Penrith?
Well, I think so. I think the offloads will play a big part in beating Penrith. I think, because they're so great structurally, defensively, they're really hard to break down. But, one thing Brisbane have got to understand is that the only reason you get offloads is by running hard, and running the break tackles. And that's what they did against the Warriors. They just, they ran hard, they found some space, and they're not a team that, genuinely offloads much, throughout the year. But, their attitude to roll the sleeves up and just charge into the defensive line obviously created some opportunities for offload. And, what Brisbane have got out wide is strike power. Katoni Staggs, Herbie Farnworth, and then, Ezra Mann and Reece Walsh, those sort of, and then you've got the two guys on the wing. Like, anytime you get those guys early ball off the back of offloads in a bit of broken field, that's going to be really critical and for the Broncos to be successful against Panthers. Is just getting those guys early ball and let them do their thing, because they're a team that's got genuine strike weapons out wide.
I was so impressed with just the physicality and the athleticism. I mean, these guys, you're there, you're close to them, they just seem bigger and faster and stronger and fitter.
Well, the other thing too is having a week off at the back end of the season. I think, I just think when you've had a really long year and you get to the end of the finals, everyone's busted. Having a week off makes the biggest difference. And I think, the last couple of years we've seen the teams that have had the week off go straight through to the grand final because, the season's so hard and you're scrambling every week to win semi-finals, which goes up a level. It takes a lot out of you. So, look, make no mistake, they're a big physical team. They've got a great forward pack. And again, they've probably got they're the only ones who've got a forward pack that are going to stand up to, the likes of Fisher Harris and Leota from the Panthers, because, those guys are wonderful players, and they won't back down. I think this is going to be one of the best grand finals we've seen for a while.
Just in terms of how Kevy approaches this, watching Penrith over the last few weeks, they're so clinical, and I don't know whether people think it's boring or not. I don't think so. I think it's almost perfect rugby league. They hardly make a mistake, Brent. They do everything right. They put you down your end, swarm up in tackles. They don't take a lot of risks. Is it necessary for Brisbane to take those risks, or do they just stay in the arm wrestle?
I think they just got to back themselves, mate. They've certainly got the talent to beat them, that's for sure. They're as a talented team as in what Panthers are. So I think if they can hold the ball, and as I said before, those guys that have never been in this big occasion can handle it, and they can bring their best game. Mate, they've certainly got the firepower to beat them, and I think that's going to be the big thing Kevy will do all week, is just give them the belief that they can actually beat them, and they did in round one. When they played them, a lot of water's gone under the bridge. But mate, look, I think this week that'll be the big thing from Kevy, is just giving these guys the belief that they've got the talent to beat them.
Yeah, look, I was looking at those, obviously, the round scores, 13-12 to Brisbane first round. I think it was about round 8, it was 15-4. But to me, the most significant thing is the points. Okay, only conceded 12 the first time, 15 the second time. If that remains the same, can keep Penrith to that kind of points level, got to be a real chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's been the big turnaround in Brisbane this year, is their defence. I think they'll have to defend a little bit better than what they did against the Warriors. I thought when the Warriors got in good ball, they pulled them apart on the edges quite easily. So, Sean Johnson, there's not too many better than that. But there is one better, Nathan Cleary. So, and the form that he's in, if Brisbane don't get their edge defence right, he will make an absolute mockery of them. So that's going to be a really big focus for them, I think, their edge defence. But look, mate, I just get the feeling we're going to see a really cracking grand final, because both teams have got big, good players that have all played in big games. Whilst Broncos haven't played in grand finals, a lot of those guys have played big games with Origin and Test footy, so they should know how to handle it. And if they do, we're going to see a good old-fashioned shootout, I think.
Did that help you, being able to play in those games? Like once you played a couple of Origins or Test matches, then you got to a grand final. Do you think that helped you? I don't know whether it calms you down or whether you just know that you deserve to be at that level.
Well, I think it gives you the ability to handle the nerves and the pressure and the expectation of being in a grand final a little bit better, through having that experience of playing big games like Origin. So, it's certainly a help, but I will say grand final is a different kettle of fish again. It is the biggest game on the calendar. And the enormity around it, knowing that, a lot of players don't even get the chance to play in one, let alone win one. So it is, again, a different kettle of fish. But I think that experience that those guys have had from big games like Origin will certainly help them.
A couple of quick questions. We'll let you go. And I thank you so much for your time. Brent Tate with us on the platform. Does it live with you forever, mate? I mean, I'm great, mate. I'm not name dropping, but I'm great mates with Matthew Ridge, and I ask him all the time because I love hearing the answer. He, the 1996 Manly side. He said, Dev, it stays with you forever. He said you can bump into any of those guys, have a conversation, bit of social media chat with them. He said it brings it all flooding back straight away.
I would 100% agree with that. I think now that you're finished and you're retired, mate, they're the things. I'm not going to say you hang your hat on, but the things that you look back on with real pride and knowing that I can say I'm a grand final winner is something that I'm, I don't know. I'll say hang my hat on. It's not quite the words that I'm after, sure, but it is something that I look back on and I am immensely proud of winning one.
What I love about you the most is as much as I admired you as a player, I loved you as a player and everything else, what you went through with your knee injuries and that heartbreaking moment where you did it for the third time and you're in the dressing room and that, and every time anything's untoward has happened to me, I always think about you and I always just think the strength of character that you had to come back and keep bloody coming back in the face of it, mate. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you, Martin. Yeah, it's, I'm proud of what I was able to achieve throughout my footy career. Although I do pay a price day in and day out now.
I bet you do, yeah.
But that, you wouldn't change it for the world, mate. It was a wonderful ride, and I absolutely adored my time playing for New Zealand and the Warriors. That was some of the most fondest part of my career, looking back at the 3 years that I had at that club.
Who wins the final, mate?
My heart says Broncos, but I think the Panthers will be too good.